This is our project. We painted a fence for residential fence painting is the name of our group. Our team members, first I was acting as the site superintendent, ensuring that the project when we were there ran smoothly. Kelsey was the project manager. She was in charge of communicating with the sponsor and getting them to find the scopes and objectives. Ofa, he was our estimator for time and materials, creating a budget. And David was our scheduler, finding out how much time it would take and making sure that we were on time.
Our group decided to do a residential fence painting for Kathy and Dan Richmond. They live out in Eagle Mountain, Utah. The fence was previously installed by the owners, and then they just needed us to do the labor on the fence painting. This originally was not our project. We thought this was a hypothetical project, and we did not realize till about mid-March that this was supposed to be a real project. So we had minimal time to come up with a new project so we could get everything taken care of. Luckily, we knew somebody who needed their fence painted, and we figured we were sticking with a fence, and it was the easiest thing we could do. Pre-construction, I met with the property owners, and we were able to kind of work out what was going to go on with the project. We discussed what was needed for our group in order to paint. The owners took care of all the materials. So they determined what color the fence was supposed to be, what type of paint they were using, things like that. Yeah, the fence installation was mostly completed. They actually finished installing the fence the Sunday before we painted. So that was one of the things we were waiting on for our project. So this is the property. The fence runs along the east side of the property. It drops down to 3 feet in height, about 30 feet back from the property line. The street that's up here on the north side. The rest of the fence is all 6 feet in height, and they're 8-foot panels, and yeah, they run along the back of their property. We did paint some on the other side that was also supposed to be finished painting, but it was waiting on installation, so yeah, we painted that as well. Materials used on the fence, they were made from cedar slats. They were untreated, so they soaked up the wood quite a bit. Cedar is it naturally is water resistant, so it does pretty well with that. But they did want it darker, but still able to see the grain. They used this Valspar paint. They had a semi-transparent, and then 1 gallon of that per 2 gallons of chocolate chip colored paint. These are just some more pictures. There's the group painting. You can go.
Okay. So my name is David Rango, and I was in charge of scheduling. As you can see here, our original schedule was very simple and short. It consisted of only 4 items and a quick timeline. The first item was prepping the site. Item 2 was just spray painting the fence, and then 3 was roll paint, and item 4 was finished touch-ups. So we had a couple of changes to the schedule. Originally, we planned to begin after prepping just with going straight to spraying the fence, but Kelsey actually started earlier with a friend before we got there, and discovered that the paint missed a lot of the nooks and crannies of the fence. And the most efficient way to paint the fence was to use paint brushes first in order to get paint in the places the spray couldn't reach. And that step actually took longer than all the rest of the steps of painting the fence. So we didn't count on that. So that kind of changed the timeline a bit. And in the process of actually painting the fence, one was use the the brush between the slats in it, and area spray it can't reach. 2, cover ground with cardboard under fence panels to be painted. Third was spray panels with sprayer. Fourth was use the brush and eliminate runs and drips. 5, use small rollers to back roll between slats. 6, use larger rollers to back roll over slats. And 7, apply more paint to areas that soaked in more. And this is a video it's not a video of our actual painting process, but it's one I found on YouTube that is similar to how we painted ours. Yes, this is kind of how it went, but we had a lot more boards going across, 2x4s going across, so a lot of those parts under the 2x4 weren't reached by the spray brush or by the spray paint. So that's where we had to go in with the paintbrush and manually do it. And we also had cardboard under the fence, so we didn't spray any of there was rock and gravel that the owners didn't want to be sprayed brown. And once we were done, the fence looked a lot better than this one because it was nice and brown, chocolatey, instead of just black. That's it.
Whenever you're ready, let me know.
Okay, go.
My name is Tuiileila, and I was in charge of doing the estimated budget on our project. And so our goal was to paint 33 fence panels, which were 6 by 8. And the total square footage on that was 1,584 square feet. We had a crew of 4 people. And estimated time per panel was 30 minutes. So the total hours that we calculated that it would take to paint the 33 fence panels was 6 hours. And for material, we needed 8 gallons of paint. For one gallon, it cost $35.98. So the grand total with 8 cans was $287.84. We needed some paint brushes, which were 3. They were fairly expensive, $30 per brush, so that was a total of 90. Paint sprayer was $90, and we just used 1. Rollers was 20, so we needed 2, so a total of 40. And then the gloves, we had 4, which was $8 per glove, and the total on that was 32. So on material alone, the total was $539.84. And as far as labor, we had a superintendent, and his salary, his wage per hour was $20, which was 6 hours times 6 hours. That was $120. And then we had 3 laborers, and their the wage per hour was 15 times 6, which was $270. So a total of $390 was the total for labor. And then the baseline budget was, we pretty much hit our budget. We didn't go over on our labor. It was $390, materials $339.84, and contingency, it was pretty much the extra supplies that we were using, and that was $100. So the grand total of the budget was $1,029.84. So we met our budget. That's it.
Okay, go.
So, this is our risk management plan. We came up with 3 main risks that we're gonna face. The first, because it's springtime, the weather was unpredictable. So we were worried that we were not going to be able to complete the project because of the weather. The second was that, coordinating between the four of us, not all of us would be able to attend the day that we painted the fence. And the last is running out of material. The biggest what's the word? The biggest risk was the weather, and we chose to mitigate that. If we really had to, we could set up awnings, but that would hinder our progress. Luckily, we did not have to run into this. We found a day with some nice weather over the weekend. We were able to do that. Our next highest risk was that we were running out of materials. We actually did experience this at the very end. We were a couple panels short, but we were able to coordinate with the sponsor and get more paint, and we were able to finish on time. And our least likely of the risk is that some team members weren't going to be able to attend. We tried to avoid this by coordinating with everyone, and it ended up that we're all able to make it. But if we hadn't been able to do that, then we would have gone at a slower pace, and it would have taken longer, and the one person would have missed out and found us some other way to make it up to the group.
Okay, go.
So for the project, now we're just gonna talk about what lessons that we learned from the project, what we could have done better to avoid mistakes, or what things that we learned individually. So I'll start. Some of the questions I'm gonna be asking is, first one is, what did we do well? I said, what we did well as a group was that we work as a team. The next question is, what could we have improved? Could it improve our communication and planning? I feel like towards the end, we kind of like rushed things, so that could have been better. Mistakes to avoid. I don't know if there's so much mistakes, but like definitely stuff that you need to have while you're out there in the sun. Definitely have gloves on, because you don't want the overspray to get on you, because it takes a while for it to come off. And especially if the sun's out, you need sunscreen and a hat to kind of keep you cool from the hot sun. And the last question is problems that we could have avoided. I don't think we had any major problems that we could have avoided to the project, because everything kind of went well as a group. Like I said in the beginning, we worked well as a team. Everybody did their part, and there wasn't anybody that wasn't like a pain in the butt to work with. Everybody stepped up and did their part.
Okay, go.
Okay, so I was just gonna go over some lessons I learned personally. I think something we did well. Hopefully I already kind of mentioned it, but I think we did well as working together as a group, and everyone took initiative to do their part when asked, and no one complained about doing a certain part of the project. Everyone was pretty good with communicating. Things I feel like I could have improved on was take more of a lead at times. I kind of just went with the flow in a lot of the project, and I just waited till assignments were handed out to me. But I think I could have stepped up more and been more of a leader, and that's something I think I could have worked on. I think problems. We didn't really have any problems as a group. Mistakes to avoid. I think probably just being more prepared. I think I could have been more prepared when we came to actually paint the fence. Like Ofa was saying, I didn't have any gloves or glasses when we were spraying, and it was really hot, and I didn't have a hat or anything. So that's just some of the things I think I learned from this project.
Wait, start over. Okay, go.
Lessons we learned. Something we did well, as previous stated, we all worked well as a team. We all knew our roles, what we needed, and we all got those to, like David got mistake was at first we, weren't sure of the assignment's requirements. So, getting together at first and really finding out what we needed to do and then where to go from there. Problems that could have avoided. Again, the biggest problem was at first not knowing what the project was for certain. And we could have avoided that by meeting sooner, and reaching out to the professor sooner, find out really what was needed, and that could, play over in the real world to make sure you know what your sponsors and customers need from a project, and then that'll help you go forward and not waste time like we did at first, making schedules and budgets for a project that we didn't have to do.
So what I thought we did very well, as everybody said, we worked very well as a group, even when we were under pressure to come up with a new project because, we were confused at the start. We were able to come to a conclusion very quickly. We actually had the whole project basically finished because we thought it was hypothetical, so we made our schedule, we did everything, and then we found out that it was not real just like after we submitted the first project review thing that we did. So after that was when we learned, and we had to hurry up and come up with something. The group was very accommodating. Luckily, I knew some people who needed their fence painted, so we went that route. What we could improve on, painting a fence is kind of hard. Unless you've painted a wood fence, you don't fully understand how much the wood soaks up the paint, especially because some of the wood has been sitting out since November. So because of that, it was very dry and it had soaked up quite a bit more, whereas other spots didn't. So I think it was just more being aware of what we were painting. But that's not really something that was fully our problem. We were pretty limited on what we were able to do, but that was just maybe, if we weren't as short on time, it would have been a little bit easier for us to fully get a grasp on how to paint the fence, like what the easiest thing is, and we could have had more like trial and error kind of things. Mistakes to avoid, basically the same thing. Just know your materials, know what it is that you're doing, things like that. Overall the project went very well. We got it done pretty quickly. I spent 5 days, the day before I spent 5 hours with a friend of mine painting the fence, and then as a group we spent the next day knocking the rest of it out. So we did really well with our time management, and because there were so many of us, and because I had previously learned to prep and use the brush to get in the nooks and crannies and jam it in there, it made it a lot easier when we were spraying to back roll, because then we didn't have to back roll or use the brush in so many places. So that was really great on our part. It really saved time. We spent probably 2 hours just doing that step, and then after that, we were able to knock out a whole panel in 5 minutes after that. It was just the prep work, getting all that taken care of. Cleanup was good. But yeah, overall I would say our project went very well. The owners were very pleased. If anything, they're more pleased because they did not have to paint their fence. They originally thought they were going to have to. I know they're holding some wedding there this coming summer, so that was good on their part. Now there's just a few things that I'm going to later on go back and touch up, mostly because I have OCD with these types of things. There's just some things where, the wood, even days later, it was still soaking up the paint in different spots, and as I walk by, I can just see them, and so we're going to go take care of those still. But that's about it. The group was great. Everyone did their fair share. We all pitched in. We were all very timely in this whole thing, especially with the fact that we had to change it and come up with a whole new project pretty quickly. It was easier in the fact that it already I mean, they were both fence projects that we were planning before we were planning to just build a residential fence, and instead we ended up painting the residential fence. So it was a lot easier just to paint it than it would have been to actually install the fence. That would have taken quite a bit more time. I know the homeowners they started back in like October putting up the fence, and yeah, they just barely finished just probably 2 weeks ago on a Sunday. So it was good. We got it all taken care of, and they are very pleased with what we did. So thanks.